So what we're now going to talk about is this idea of how to get used to training with a metronome. Because we're trying to train a specific type of timing, and more importantly, this idea of tempo changing. Tempo changing is often a really difficult topic to try and train a tempo change actively, especially when we're in a sparring environment. As a sparring environment often has far too much complexity for us to try and train actively with a resisting opponent. Understand this solo exercise will give you the mental framework that will allow you to understand and identify between each beat in the metronome, between beats 1, 2, 3, and 4, there is a space between the beat. If we continue to move in regularity with the beat, that's what we call moving on beat. If I have a regular rhythm that I move to, we can always anticipate that the movement will occur on either beat 2 or beat 3, beat 4, so on and so forth. When we try to break the rhythm, we're trying to fill the space and really create an irregularity in the rhythm. That is how we're actually able to enter spaces around our partner and funnel them into our personal offensive cycle of movement. And I found that this exercise is a really easy way for us to visualize how we can find those moments when we do go back into the sparring environment, how we can tempo change, because we now see, oh, they haven't gone to the second beat yet, or they haven't done the next movement that my partner is required to do that may put me behind. I identify that now if I don't move or accelerate at this particular moment, tempo change, that I'm going to fall behind, or I won't remain in my neutral anymore. Now, in order to advance, we understand this idea that we have to break the rhythm. We have to tempo change. We have to accelerate. So hopefully, through doing these exercises, you'll start to slowly identify what is that window of time and how we can slowly bring that back into the sparring environment once we've digested this mental framework. So now, before we begin and go into the metronome exercises, we're going to first talk about one really important thing, how to make the grid. So you're going to need some tape, any sort of tape. I would recommend something that is at least like 2 inches thick or 1.5 inches, just so you can visibly have a nice framework on the mat. Pair of scissors. You want the grid, if you can see what it looks like, it's just a big box-shaped square. We have 4 squares. There are many different versions of the grid actually, but this is the most basic version of the grid that we can use. So this is what I want us to start with. You want to just slightly shoulder width long. So as you can see, this is what my shoulder width looks like, is slightly wider than that. And when we do go on to do the exercise, it doesn't matter if you're stepping slightly outside of the box, okay? You don't have to stay within the constraint of the box, but we try our best to use the lines as a reference point. That's the major keyword here, a reference point. So we have our 3 horizontal strips. We just need 1 big box and 4 smaller boxes in between. So again, this would be my center line for the grid. So our first metronome exercise, we're going to start with a fairly low BPM being beats per minute. So get your metronome app. Again, there's a variety of them that you can download. This one specifically is the Soundburner app. I have it set to 55 beats per minute. So that's ready. I'm going to start at the center of the grid. I'm just going to show you what it looks like. So when we are ready to begin, we're going to set the phone down, stand in the center of the grid, and again, start slow. It doesn't matter if you get it wrong, because it's going to feel awkward at first, especially if it's the first time that you're doing it. Try and really listen to each of the beats and try and synchronize your movement. It doesn't matter if you keep repeating the same step. It's not about creativity here. I think a lot of people try this exercise for the first time, they're trying to get super creative. This is not our intention here. We're trying to do a very basic exercise and execute it on a base level here, okay? So take a look at how I'm doing it. So now that you've taken a look at me doing the exercise at 55 beats per minute, you can see how my main aim in this exercise is to sync a very basic movement, which is pretty much, I'm just walking on the grid. I'm going back and forwards on the grid and synchronizing with the tempo. Our main aim before we can add further resistance in Jiu Jitsu is actually collaboration. If I cannot collaborate with a beat, if I cannot collaborate with a specific tempo, understand it'll be very difficult for us just to continually try and impose on other people. We're not gaining this deep understanding of Jiu Jitsu. Why do I keep talking about tempo so much? Because your tempo is actually your training partner. Think about it. Your training partner usually has an agenda that they want to assert on you. Understand that this exercise in collaboration is you learning how to dance with your partner. Dance in the way that you are building collaborative movement together. You're collaborating together. Because once you know how to collaborate with someone, you know how to break the rhythm. You know, okay, they're going to be moving at this specific speed. So if I speed up in this window of time, I can advance. I can get to better control positions. So after each exercise that you do try, because now we will be speeding up the BPM, I want you to try and observe yourself and observe the little pockets of time between each of the beats of each of the steps, okay? So we already tried 55, or if you haven't had a go yet, please try. Don't worry if you're overly stiff as you're trying it, because anything that you do for the first time, it's going to be a little bit challenging, especially this is a very abstract exercise. So try and chill out. It doesn't matter. Try and have some fun. Just focus, again, between step 1, step 2. Can you notice and observe the time and space between each of the steps? Because again, what we're trying to build here is this mental framework that we can understand, okay, I need to tempo change in this specific pocket of time. When we go back to whether we play guard, whether we're trying to pass in the top position, you should be able to identify these little pockets of time. They won't be as apparent as this, but using this mental framework, it has really helped me and enabled me to identify these pockets of time at the highest level of competition. So slowly, as you keep practicing this, you would slowly find more opportunities to identify this in your normal training and not on the grid. Okay, so we're going to use the grid so we can use it off the grid. You get it? Off the grid. Ha. All right, let's go on to the next exercise. So now we're going to try it at 75 beats per minute. So now for the third exercise, we're bringing up to 135 beats per minute. Understand when you go and practice this exercise, faster is not better. Don't try and rush. It's not a competition against yourself to get to the highest BPM possible as soon as possible, okay? Do what is within your comfort zone first and really build a dialogue with it. Because you'll understand that true mastery and identifying these pockets of time will only come with deep understanding at the slower tempos, at the slower speeds. Once you get you're very confident in the lower BPMs or the slower BPMs, then you can bring it up. So you don't have to jump straight to 135 if that feels uncomfortable to you. You can go in baby steps. So we went already from like 55 to 75. You can go to 100. You can keep it there for a while, play around with it, okay? There's not a specific BPM per se that you should be training. It's just to experiment with different tempos so you can understand, okay, how do I sync with the movement this way? We can compare this to when we're in a sparring environment, when our partner is moving at a pace that seems unsustainable for us. We can't hold that pace for too long. Understand that this is the purpose of training tempo in this way, or training metronome stuff, is to really understand and internalize these ideas. Okay, this guy, he always spars too fast. He always spars at this speed that just feels like really out of my comfort zone. I prefer a slower, more controlled game. Understand by using these exercises, you can understand mentally how you can get closer to getting to their pace. Otherwise, we'll go back to the technique section where you're going to use the techniques to slow people down. And that will be our aim, okay? For now, 135 BPM.